You know that classic image of the three wise men, right? It's everywhere, on Christmas cards, in nativity scenes. We all know it. But what if I told you that the story we think we know gets almost every single detail wrong? Yeah, that classic picture, three kings decked out on their camels showing up to the stable right on Christmas night. It's a great story. The only problem is, when you actually dig into the historical accounts, that whole picture, well, it just completely falls apart. The real story is, well, it's way more mysterious and honestly a lot more interesting. It's this incredible mix of ancient history, prophecy, and some really deep theology. It's like a detective story. And when you start to solve it, you uncover a message that's so much bigger and more revolutionary than you might think. So, here's how we're going to tackle this mystery together. First, we'll look at why this was a king for all nations, a truly global message. Then we'll dig into the big one, solving the Magi mystery. After that, we're following the guiding star to see what that was all about. Then comes the drama with two kings in Jerusalem, and we'll wrap up by looking at their gifts of deeper meaning. All right, let's dive in. So, first up, a king for all nations. You gotta ask, why are these foreign travelers so important to the story? Well, it turns out it's not just some nice little detail, it's a huge statement. Because right from the very beginning, the news about this new king was being sent out to two completely different groups of people at the same time. Just think about it for a second. On one hand, you have the shepherds. They're the ultimate insiders here, right? And how do they get the news? From an angel. That's a classic, familiar way God communicates in their tradition. But then you have the magi, total outsiders from a faraway land, and their message comes through a star, a cosmic sign, a message written in the language of the heavens that they would be the ones to understand. So you've got two different audiences, two totally different methods, but it's all pointing to the same universal message. And that's the whole point, really. Having these foreign dignitaries show up makes it crystal clear this was never meant to be just a local event. Right from the jump, it's being set up as a story for the entire world. It immediately shatters the idea that this new king was just for one group of people. Nope, this was a global affair from day one. All right, so now we get to the really fun part, solving the Magi mystery itself. Let's put on our detective hats and get into the big questions. When did they come? Who were they? And why were they coming? Okay, first things first, let's blow up one of the biggest myths right away. They absolutely did not show up at the stable on Christmas night. It's not even close, actually. The timeline we can piece together points to them arriving much, much later. So, let's walk through the timeline. Historians generally place Jesus' birth around December of 5 BCE. Now, about 40 days after that, his family takes him to the temple in Jerusalem for a public ceremony. Think about that. You're not going to do that if King Herod, who was famously paranoid, is already hunting down your kid. We also know that Herod died in March of 4 BCE, so that gives us this really tight little window, right? The Magi had to have shown up after that temple visit, but before Herod died. That means they got there weeks, maybe even a couple of months after the birth. And get this, the text is super clear. It says they found him in a house, not a stable. Okay, so if they weren't kings who showed up at the manger, then who on earth were these mysterious travelers? Well, the word magi originally meant a priestly class from ancient Persia, what we now call Iran. These guys were the intellectuals of their day, the astronomers, the philosophers, the kingmakers, which leads to the million-dollar question: how did these brilliant scholars from a totally different culture even know to be looking for a new Jewish king? Well, ancient writers had a few really cool theories. One idea is that they were following a super old prophecy, like 1,500 years old, from a guy named Balaam, who talked about a star rising from Jacob. Another theory, and this one is fascinating, connects them to the prophet Daniel, from the lion's den. He was actually made the chief of the Magi back in Babylon hundreds of years earlier. It's totally possible he left behind writings for them to study. And a third theory is that it came from their own tradition, that their teacher, Zoroaster, had prophesied that a special birth would be announced by a star so bright you could see it in the middle of the day. So whatever it was that tipped them off, their guide on the journey was the star. And let's be clear, this was no ordinary star. When you look at how it's described, its behavior was unlike anything in the known universe. I mean, just look at the evidence. Normal stars move from east to west. This one moved north to south, guiding them from Persia. It was supposedly bright enough to be seen during the day. It played peekaboo. It appeared, then disappeared, then showed up again. And the craziest part? It stopped and hovered over a single house. I mean, come on. No comet, no exploding star, no alignment of planets does that. It's just not how astronomy works. So what was it? Some early writers even wondered if it was an angel disguised as a star. But whatever its physical makeup was, its purpose was crystal clear. It was basically a divine GPS. It was a supernatural guide speaking to these magi in the one language they were guaranteed to understand, the language of the cosmos. But then, something strange happens. Right when they're getting close, their divine GPS just cuts out. The star is gone. So what do? Well, the magi do the most logical thing in the world. If you're looking for a newborn king, you go to the capital city and you ask the current king. And that single decision, it sets up this incredible, tense confrontation. Can you just imagine the scene? These foreign VIPs roll into Jerusalem and just casually ask, "Hey, so where's the baby who was just born king of the Jews?" The reaction isn't excitement, it's sheer panic. King Herod, a guy known for being incredibly paranoid and violent, is described as being troubled. And let me tell you, when Herod is troubled, everyone in Jerusalem gets troubled right along with him. And right here, the whole conflict of the story is just laid bare. You've got King Herod in his palace, desperate to hold on to his earthly power, and his reaction is fear and deception. And then you've got the Magi looking for this other king in a humble little house, and their reaction is faith and worship. It's this total clash between heavenly authority and earthly power. And this is where the story hits you with this deep, profound irony. Herod calls in his own top religious scholars, the ultimate insiders, and they know the answer. They immediately quote the scripture that says the Messiah will be born in Bethlehem. They have the right information, but they don't do a thing with it. It's the outsiders, the Magi, who actually travel the last 6 miles to Bethlehem and put their faith into action. So the star reappears, leads them to the right house, and they finally find him. And this is when they offer their famous gifts. But here's the thing. These weren't just some random, pricey baby gifts. They were symbolic. They were basically prophetic statements about who this child was. Let's break them down. First, you've got gold. That one's pretty straightforward, right? Gold is a gift for a king. It's a symbol of royalty. Then there's frankincense. This was a special incense that priests used in the temple for worship, so that gift points to him being a high priest, someone who connects God and humanity. And finally, there's myrrh. This was an aromatic spice, used for burial. It was a prophetic gift pointing to his future sacrifice and death. So with just those 3 gifts, the Magi basically spelled out this child's entire identity and mission. They saw more than just a baby. They declared him to be a king who would rule, a priest who would redeem, and a sacrifice who would save. So their mission is complete. They're all set to go back and report to Herod, just like he asked. But then there's one last moment of divine guidance. They get a warning in a dream. Don't go back to Herod. And with simple, straightforward faith, they just obey. They completely change their travel plans and head home a different way. When you think about it, their journey began by following a star, and it ended by following a dream. Their whole adventure was this incredible act of faith, being guided by signs that were sent just for them, from the huge, cosmic scale of a star to the quiet, personal whisper of a dream. And so the story leaves us with this really powerful question to think about. What does it mean when the outsiders see what the insiders miss? It's just this timeless reminder that sometimes the people looking from the outside, the ones with fresh eyes and a genuine hunger for the truth, they're the ones who see things that the insiders, who think they already have all the answers, completely overlook.